What's up, everybody? My name is Drew Smith. I am a beer enthusiast. I've been brewing my own beer for a bit now, and what I've always wanted to do was get into kegging, but doing a big keg, a 5-gallon keg, was just, it's out of my reach. I don't have that much room, and I don't really have the motivation to do something like that, but I saw somebody online was using these little party kegs with some do-it-yourself kind of hardware here to turn it into a standard keg, and I've actually been able to recreate that. I've spent the last few months putting this together. I'm very proud of it, but there was a few challenges that I had to get through. I'm going to show you how I did it and how you can do it. Basically, if you've got a hardware store near that's handy, you can get all of this equipment from there. And if you don't, and if you're like me and you find it a bit challenging and overwhelming to kind of put this system together, in the link below here on the YouTube video, I will link my eBay account where I'm actually selling this system. It's all of the hardware. It's very affordable. It's a lot cheaper than your standard kegging system if you're interested. Otherwise, if you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing, you can put this system together yourself very easily. So let's go ahead and take a look at how I put this system together. Here's a do-it-yourself mini keg system. With this system, you can do forced carbonation. Anything that you would do with a standard keg, you can do with this keg. I'll go over what I have here, and then we're going to show you how I put it all together. Starting with the CO2 tank. This is a 12-ounce paintball CO2 tank, actually. In order to connect this to a CO2 regulator, I had to get this blue piece on Amazon into your standard dual gauge CO2 regulator. Here you see the pressure in the tank. Here you see the pressure going out into the keg. Here you can control that pressure. Here's your on and off valve. The red gas line tubing goes around and up into the keg here. I've got my gas line going in through this plastic piece here that I'm pointing at, which is a 1/4 inch thread into a 3/8 inch hose barb, which the gas line is wrapped around, into this galvanized steel threaded tee. Gas is coming in through here. It's trying to come up out, but here I have a compression adapter. This is basically two nuts with a sleeve in between that creates an airtight seal around this copper tubing. And then here's a 1/4 inch galvanized steel nipple that connects everything together. Obviously that copper tubing is going down through here. Another 1/4 inch nipple here. This one at the bottom, it's gray, it's plastic. I have one of those gray rubber bungs. And then this copper tubing that I pointed at, it goes all the way down the system through this 1/4 inch nipple into the keg here. And when I put it in the system, I put the copper tubing all the way down and pulled it up. So it's about a 1/4 inch off the bottom of the keg here. And then when you open the line, the beer will travel up through this copper tube here. The world's longest dip tube, if you didn't notice that. And then this is my liquid line out here, which is connected to a party tap, which I got online. Very easy to get. And then it's just like a keg, like I said, forced carbonation and everything. I've just got water to test the system. That's pretty much the whole system there. It's very easy. Just a few pieces of equipment here will get you going. Now, if you need a little bit more information, I'm going to break down and show you step by step how I put this system together. Now let's take a look at our equipment that we'll be using. First thing we have here is a 1/4 inch male by 3/8 inch hose barb. Then we have a gray rubber bung. We've got two 1/4 inch nipples. These ones are 2 inches long. The one on the left is plastic. The one on the right is galvanized steel. We've got the 1/4 inch threaded tee, also made of galvanized steel. We've got a 1/4 inch copper tubing, 2 feet here. And then we have the 3/8 inch by 1/4 inch brass compression adapter. And you see that golden piece on the copper tubing, that actually goes in between these two nuts on the compression adapter. And when you tighten the system, what it does is it ends up crimping this onto the copper tubing, so you won't be able to move it once it's in place. Then we've got the easy turn hose clamps. These orange ones here are for the gas line in. And these easy turn hose clamps, the blue ones, are for the liquid line out. This just helps create that airtight seal. Of course, we've got the dual gauge regulator. We've got a CO2 tank. This is actually a paintball gun CO2 tank. And this little blue piece that I have on the CO2 regulator was an adapter that I had to purchase in order to connect this little CO2 tank to the regulator. And then, of course, we've got the vinyl tubing, the clear vinyl tubing with the plastic party tap attached to the end. And then the mini keg or the party keg. These you can obviously buy at a store like I did this one. You can also purchase them online for about $15, and they are 5 liters, and that's about 1.32 gallons. Now, let's go ahead and go over how to put all of this together. Also, these are the tools that I will be using for this system here. Of course, I've got a couple different pairs of pliers here. I've got a wrench, and then I've got this, which is a tube or pipe cutter. And then I've got vinyl tape, which I will be using for everything pretty much that has a thread on it. One of the very first things that I'm going to do is get some water started boiling. You're going to be using boiling water to soften up some of the tubing to attach to the system. So start that, and that will be ready and boiling by the time that you've got your system together. So start some boiling water right now. Now that the water is starting to boil, I'm going to go ahead and start putting the system together. One of the first things that I'm going to do is put Teflon tape on anything that has a thread on it. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to start with the 1/4-inch hose barb here. Anything that has a thread is going to get a little bit of this Teflon tape on it. Now for the 1/4-inch nipples, one of these is actually going to be going down into the keg, so I only need to put Teflon tape on 3 of the threads here. One thread will be going actually into the keg, so you don't need Teflon tape for whichever one you decide to put in the keg. That's great. Now every piece has Teflon tape on it. We're going to start here by putting the system together. Everything revolves around this threaded T. First thing is the gas in. So this little plastic hose barb here is going to be the gas in, so I'll connect it here on the side is where I want it to go. Whoops, slippery little booger. Here, one of these 1/4-inch nipples, this one is actually going to be going down into the keg, and I'll put it on either side here, doesn't really matter. And then this 1/4-inch nipple will be going out the top of the system. We'll thread it in. And now we have the compression adapter that will go on top here. And can you see that nicely? There, we've got the system here pretty much put together. Now what I'm going to do is take a few seconds and tighten everything up just a little bit. And so in order to do that, I'm going to have my wrench here to hold some pieces, and I'm going to use some pliers here at the same time. So I'm going to take this and just squeeze that plastic piece there, and then just with my hands thread that on a little bit until I feel like it's nice and snug. And do the same here with the hose barb. Really want to make sure everything's going to be airtight and water sealed and good to go, but I don't want it to be too tight that I won't be able to ever get it apart. And lastly here, give that a nice little squeeze there. Now everything feels nice and snug. Like it's all together nice and tight. I feel like this is going to work. I'm just going to clean up some of this tape here that I don't need that's coming unbunched. Alright, everything's nice and snug there. I think that's going to work. Now, what we need to do is get our copper tubing into the system. And like this, see, I've already measured everything out, and I've already done this once. But we'll go here through the copper tubing, down through the system. Now it's nice and snug, so I just wiggle it till it goes through here. There we go. And since I've put this system together a few times, my copper tubing isn't exactly completely straight anymore. So that creates another challenge. And now here's where we get to the magic part, where this compression sleeve is right there at the top of the compression adapter. And now we've got the nut here that goes on top of the compression adapter. You slide down the system. There we go, and screw it into place. Nice. And this creates that really nice airtight seal. Here's where I tighten that up. Very good. Now we need to get this system into the keg. There you go. You should be able to see from there what I'm about to do here. I've got my keg. Now I could put the rubber bung in the keg right now, but what I found is that it's actually a little bit easier if I put the rubber bung onto the bottom of the system first. And it's easier for me to wiggle it in there. And now I'm right here to the middle of the nipple there. The rubber bung is on the middle of the nipple, so it's not on any of the threading here. And then I'll just kind of try to clean that Teflon tape up. It's not that big a deal. And now I'm going to go down into the system. I'll put my fingers around the rubber bung here, a hand on top, and press, and hopefully it'll pop right down into the system. Well, it's creating a little bit more challenge than I thought there would be, which is a good thing. That means there's going to be a nice airtight seal. I'll put the rubber bung in here now by itself to start. There we go. And now I'll go ahead and press this down in there. Well, that was a lot easier that time. So there you go. Trial and error. Put the rubber bung in first, and then put the system in. So again, if you can see here, that nipple is about halfway down onto the system. There's no thread in the center of the bung there. And now, everything can be cleaned up a little bit and get some of that Teflon tape off of there. I'm going to just twist that, see if that's a nice tight seal. It feels tight there. Everything feels pretty good. Now one thing that we need to do is get the system together, and for that we need to get the party tap on top of the copper tube here, and then we also need to get the gas line in. The red tube needs to go here for the gas line in. So now let's go ahead and go over here to the boiling water. The water is boiling nicely. I just got the system together. Now we'll take the end of the party tap here and put this in the boiling water just for a couple seconds. Doesn't need to be too long. Just trying to soften up the end of the tube so that we can then get it on top of the system. Nothing too fancy there. Been about 30 seconds. I think that should work. Now, let's come over here to the top of the copper tube. Here we go. And the best way I've found to do this is come at an angle until you get a corner, well, I guess an edge of the copper tubing in there, and then follow around. And see how I just kind of wiggle it on there. And then I'll just continue to wiggle. And I just need to get it down. Not too far, but just that's about an inch or so. There we go. Nice. And now we need to do the same for the red gas line in. Here we are back at the boiling water. We've got the CO2 regulator this time with the red gas line. And this time, what I'm going to do is put these hose clamps on first. And this is just going to make it easier to put them on. I forgot to do that with these hose clamps, but that's okay. It's not that hard to put them on. You can take them apart and then put them on post afterwards. So there we go. Again, into the boiling water here just for a few seconds. Then we'll get that system. Again, while that's in the boiling water, I'll show you here that red tube is ultimately going to go around this plastic hose barb there, and that is going to be our gas line in. Say hello to the cat in the background there. It is lunchtime. Very nice. Let's see here. Oh, hello. Got a little fog up on the camera there. All right, I think that's going to be enough time. It's been a few seconds here. Now, let's go over here to the mini keg. Gas line in, softened up. Again, nice rotation there to get it on. Oh, yeah. So boiling it really helps it squeeze right on there. Now I've pretty much got the system set up here, but I want to give it a test and make sure that everything's nice and airtight and that it works properly. So I'm going to have to take it apart now and then fill it up with some water, and then we can give it a test. It's all filled with water now, rubber bung, into the system here. And now, down we go. There we go. Feels pretty good. I'm just going to tighten up this hose clamp. The gas in here. Make sure that's nice and tight. Gas in. Here we go. And just follow down the CO2 regulator with this other hose clamp at the end of the CO2 regulator. These easy turn hose clamps are fantastic. That way I don't need a screwdriver. I just clamp these on just like that. And now I'll show you how I'm going to put the easy turn hose clamps on the party tap part. I've got to figure out how to unscrew this here, and this just comes out and it pretty much comes apart here, and now I can just pull it apart. So if you forget, like I did, to put it on the system first, once you unscrew it, it'll make you, it's going to make me work for it here. I can then, now let's give the system a test. There we go. One of the problems I'm having is that I've got the world's largest dip tube here, so it's hard to get this all in the shot here. Now we've got the keg set up, all the lines are on, we've got everything clamped on. Hopefully we're going to create an airtight seal. I've got my CO2 tank. I've got my CO2 regulator here. Now everything's in the off position, and I'll turn this all the way, close this all the way up here. Again, I've got my blue adapter here, which allows me to put a CO2 tank on this regulating system. And once I screw in here, I might hear a nice little hiss, but everything's off, so nothing's going to go into the system quite yet. Go, and boom, we've got some numbers going on the gauge here. That just cranked up a bit. And now let's go ahead and see if we can check out what's going to happen, first thing I'm going to do is open up the gas line here. One-handed, I know, that's very impressive. And now I'm slowly going to twist the CO2 regulator. It'll get to a point where it looks like it kicks in. There it goes. Nice and slow. Make sure nothing bad happens here. Oh, we got the tap open. I forgot to close the tap. Look at that. Voila. I had this thing open because I was letting it dry out, and there we've had our first explosion. So look, the gas actually works. So let me grab a towel to dry this up here. There we go, and I am back after freshly cleaning up that mess. So what you want to make sure is that your party tap is closed here before you go ahead and put any gas into the system. So now, let's go ahead and try that again. We'll start twisting it here until we see the gauge start to jump there. Well, I don't know what's happening here. I must have a broken seal in my party tap because it is cranking out of there. And we are back again, round 3 of my trial and error. So I messed around with this party tap a little bit. Apparently, you see this top part here, it screws on. So that was a little bit loose, and now we'll see if we can turn the gas on again and see if it still has the same problem there. Ah, haha, see? No leak that time. So there you go, that's a fun little fact for you. Those party taps actually do have a screw on there. So what I'm going to do is turn it up to about 10 psi. And now what I want to do is test the system and make sure that there are no leaks. So I'm getting my ear close to it. And at the moment, I don't hear anything, but that doesn't mean that there's no leaks. So one of the surefire ways to test for a leak is to use a little bit of water and soap. Now what I'll do here is get a little bit of dish soap, and then I'll fill up a cup here with some water. And now I'm going to add a bunch of soap in there. We want a lot of bubbles here. More bubbles than you could think there. Let's get a spoon here and stir it up. So there we go. We've got some soapy water here that we will now brush onto the system and see if we can come up with any leaks. So here we go. I've used my handy dandy kitchen tools here. I got a lot of soap. See all that soap suds? Now we have to look. What's that? You see that? That right there looks like we have a leak. That means we've got a leak there, so we'll have to fix that up. But other than that, it does not look like we have any leak. There we go. That might have been my 4th time's the charm there. Lots of tightening and retightening here, going through the top of the system. Checking for any more bubbles. It will blow some bubbles there if there's a leak. This is where we had the problem. All right, looks like we are in business. Now let's test the system here. And the final test here is a squeeze of the party tap to see if everything is in working order, and there you go. Everything is going just fine. Again, it's just water in the system here. It's only been in there for a few minutes, so there's no carbonation quite yet. Give it a couple days, and I'll have some carbonated water here. Other than that, it is ready for beer. It is the do-it-yourself Mini Keg Carbonation System. Turned out pretty good. Good luck.